Hey guys, welcome back to the Guilty as Charged podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and Steven is here. So the kids come out to play when the teacher is gone. So he's on vacation in Utah, and we're gonna get to this Q&A. But first, Tyler, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I'm a little bit nervous to be here without our captain, my captain, Steven, but he is away in the state that he's from that he absolutely hates outside of the University of Utah. Otherwise, he hates that state. But Steven, if you're watching, hello, sorry you can't be here. I'm sure we'll do the best that we can. We'll definitely do the best that we can. Doesn't mean that's good, but we're about to find out. So, but you and I have held down Bolt Beat before. Before Steven got there, you were there before me, I think, and then I came in like
No, I think
mid
you were there before.
2010s or something.
I think you were there.
Well, never
before
mind.
me. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well,
yeah,
either way, we held it down a lot longer or before Steven even got there, so we can do this, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay for today. So we can start with those good old Patreon questions. Let's see what people got. So for the first question, we got Anthony Hopper. This is a question specifically for Tyler. Are you and Steven going to the Steelers Sunday Night Football game? My wife bought us tickets to fly out there from North Carolina to the game and was already looking forward to meeting up with some of the Bolt fam while I'm in town.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm glad you're coming out for that game. It should be a good game. As far as the atmosphere goes, I apologize for what you're about to see. As far as I'm aware, I did not go to the last two home games for the Steelers, but it sounds like it was complete stadium takeover by the opposing team, and both times on prime time. So good luck when you get here. But when you do get here, yes, I should be at that game. I have season tickets, so I should be there at every game. I would definitely love to go to that Steelers game with my dad, of course, on primetime, because we've never been to a primetime game together. So, yeah, I'll definitely be there. I will try to we're going to try to get parking passes and tailgate beforehand. I've never tailgated with like diehard Bolt Club or anybody. So, I'll try to be down there, and yeah, feel free to say hi. I'll try to get as many people a beer as I possibly can afford, or you can get one of those nasty burger dog, disgusting, gut buster, diabetes inducing things. It looks awful, but we can share one if you're there. Yeah, it's actually, I've gotten a lot of comments or DM from people like, hey, I'm flying from here, or I'm driving out from here. Let's get a beer. Let's do, whatever. So yeah, I can't wait to meet you, Anthony. I think you were one of our first Patreon giveaway winners. So yeah, see you there.
All right. The next question comes from Kevin Kernick, who asks, what storyline or maybe off-season hype are you guys most intrigued to see play out in each division in 2021? Parentheses, anything to give Alex a minute to talk about Jalen Hurts and his Eagles. I'm not going to talk about the Eagles, but we don't want to do every division because that would take probably a whole podcast hour. But me and Tyler both decided that we're going to do one division. So I'll go first on this one. I'm most interested to see what the Cardinals do in the AFC, in the NFC West. I think that's the best division in football, kind of by far, because the Cardinals could realistically finish last in that division, or they could finish first. It's just such a really competitive one, and they have a really good roster. I mean, at least on paper, but I haven't been sold on Cliff Kingsbury, and I think that's going to be the difference maker, whether they make it over the hump or not. So that's the one I'm most intrigued to see. I actually don't think Jalen Hurts is that interesting because he'll either be good or they'll draft a quarterback next year. So I hope for the latter or for the former, obviously, but we'll see. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, the NFC West and the Cardinals in particular are super interesting. Like you said, that probably is the best division. I thought like, well, there's probably other teams in different divisions. But then if you think about it, like you said, the Cardinals could finish last. And that team could beat, more than half the teams in the league, no problem. So, Kevin, you got a speeding ticket? Well, I'm sorry you got a speeding ticket. I'm
unfortunate.
Listen, you should have driven a little bit faster to get that ticket because you're just missing the beginning of your question. Sorry, Kevin. Hopefully that you can get that, taken care of, if you will. I've never gotten a speeding ticket, so I don't know what to do with it if I got one. As far as storylines for me, outside of the Chargers, I am definitely more concerned and more interested in whether Tua Tagovailoa is just the run to the litter of that class, even potentially behind Hurts, or is he fixable? Or is he the guy that I think I don't know Alex felt about him, but Steven and I really, really liked Tua. To me, while I don't think he'll catch Herbert, I don't see why he couldn't catch Burrow now that his supporting cast is a little bit better. And it's been easy to laugh at him, and Dolphins fans are partially responsible for that because they're kind of morons. But we have to remember that in my opinion, he had the worst situation out of the three quarterbacks. His best receiver was Parker, who's not a bad receiver, but he's not Keenan Allen, and Parker only played 68% of the team's snaps last season. Then you have Gaskin, who was good, but he only played 4 games with Tua. His offensive coordinator was fired because he was awful. They had no transition plan between Fitzpatrick and Tua. They're just like, I don't know, go face Aaron Donald. Good luck. His line was okay. Go watch that Denver game, and it was awful. It was that game versus Denver. That line was as bad as any game, including the Patriots game that the Chargers had, at least in terms of how I saw it. Maybe statistically it doesn't add up. So, I think with everything that's going on with the Dolphins, hopefully some changes, an actual offseason as the starter with Jalen Waddle, with Will Fuller, hopefully he can get better. So I'm most interested in watching him because, listen, we didn't have access to all 22 last season, so we had to go off of YouTube. Now we have all 22, but I wasn't able to watch Tua, with the all 22. But even just watching him in the games that I did, even with YouTube, he was my quarterback one. I just thought he was that efficient. And everyone says, oh, he only did so well because of his receivers. And it's partially true. You have to you have to have good receivers to, be a decent quarterback. But he was still able to elevate because he was so accurate. And you do have to get the ball to those receivers, and you do have to make a read, or you do have to, figure out the defense. And he looked so good. And it was such a bummer to watch him just kind of come into the league and be sort of iffy. But, I've said this before, Chargers fans are all like, oh, Justin Herbert went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. He didn't. Let's be real here. Toe-to-toe, in the sense that, watching two Logan Pauls, hit only 15% of their punches, against Floyd Mayweather. Yeah, they went toe-to-toe. Herbert had good moments, great moments for a rookie who just walked in and found out he was starting. I'm not taking anything away from that. But that wasn't really a toe-to-toe. Mahomes didn't have a really good game. Herbert, by, stats, didn't really have a good game. Watch Tua go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes with everybody falling around him. I believe in that game, he lost his running back beforehand. I don't know if Parker was playing. I think Preston Williams was out. I think Gesicki got hurt in that game. And Tua was still going. I think 340, 350 total yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. Basically almost willing his team, to almost beat the Chiefs and going toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. So he can do it. He can definitely do it. So I'm hoping with a better supporting cast, he'll get better. There's my long answer. That's what happens when Steven isn't here.
Yeah, I think when you talk about that Justin Herbert Chiefs game, he did well for what it was. And the backbreaker was when he threw that pick that let the Chiefs back in that game, unfortunately. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that was the Joshua Kelly fumble happened there. Then the next week week 4 against the Bucs, that also happened. So I don't know. I think he had a good game for what it was worth, but to me, yeah, sure. I think people beat up to a lot based on last year. And I think partially it's just well, it looks good with Fitzpatrick and doesn't look good with this guy. But to me, I think you got to go a little bit deeper than that and realize that Miami's offensive staff was nothing special. And Devontae Parker, I love Devontae Parker, but to me, I don't know if he's your bona fide wide receiver one. I do kind of hope for Tua's sake that offense does open up with Jalen Waddle. So I think that'll be intriguing to watch. And, that whole division really has new quarterbacks now. I mean, you have really Josh Allen, Tua, Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson. So just a lot of new energy in that division. I'm, excited because for the last 20 years, it's been just Tom Brady and then guys that, happen to play games with Tom Brady. So yeah, it's a nice fresh picture there. All right, let's get to the next question. Zach asks, if you could bring one former Chargers player to join the team this year, who would it be? Tyler, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I went through different levels of this. If I'm going like legends and the sort of obvious answers, I'm going with Junior Seau because I wasn't old enough to spell the word football while he was playing. And then, he was, when I started getting interested in football, he was probably on the Patriots at that point. So I'd love to watch him play. Hell, I just love to have him here with us still. But, I never got to watch him, this legend, play. And in my mind, I only see him as the guy that, my uncle and my dad, who aren't even fans of the Chargers, the way they talk about him, like, oh my gosh, this Junior Seau was the greatest. And so I never got to really see him play. And I would have loved to see that or meet him or something. And the Chargers could use a legit, like, we know he's a good linebacker. I'm not really sure who he would have played. I apologize for not knowing a whole lot about Junior Seau as is. But the linebacking core, while not a problem, I think could use a real established guy in the middle there. If I'm going recent players, it's kind of a bad word, but Eric Weddle. I just think that the Chargers I'm worried about the safety spot. Even if it's kind of like, even if they have Adderley, and Adderley is, a crazy, not high paid, but high profile backup, if you will. Like, I kind of need that for the Chargers this year. The Chargers and Staley want to rotate through these safeties and these DBs. And I just don't know if Adderley is really it. And I don't trust James to stay healthy. So having another safety out there who, if I'm not mistaken, can play some strong, some slot, I think would be great. Another player would be Vincent Jackson. Again, I don't know why I keep picking deceased players, but I wish Vincent Jackson were obviously here for us. And, he is kind of, in my opinion, what Mike Williams was supposed to be. I think in terms of raw potential, Vincent Jackson coming out of college was a better prospect. I'm pretty sure. Again, I got into football about when he started playing, so I'm not quite sure. But I'd love to have Vincent Jackson. But if I'm picking guys that are still in the league, and sorry for this long-winded answer, I'm either going with Jason Verrett or Adrian Phillips. And as you can tell, I'm not very confident in the secondary. Jason Verrett, yeah, I know it's not like he might get injured. There's a lot of unpredictability there, but I would feel much more comfortable having him and one more guy rather than one injury hitting and we go straight to face on and Campbell or however it works. And then Adrian Phillips, just because I've always for him to be cut and brought back so many times, I always thought this guy would be a Charger, for not because he was cut and brought back, but because he hung in there and what he means to the team for all the adversity he faced, kind of like Austin Eckler, but even more so, I think, was an undrafted free agent who made the team and became an all-pro. And, the Chargers need help on special teams. They need help potentially at that safety linebacker spot, something behind Derwin James, something to supplement Derwin James, whatever it is. So, so all those players I would love to have on the team.
Yeah, I think the secondary is where I look at too, because my answer where we talk about sort of not legends, but all-time Chargers players is Antonio Cromartie. For the cornerback room, I think if you're talking those first 2 years, that's kind of what they need right now. Because Asante Samuel Jr. will eventually be the guy, but they have Brandon Faison taking first team reps right now, which is concerning. So I think if you had a playmaker like Antonio Cromartie, that would be fun. And I totally agree with you about Adrian Phillips because not just on the field, but special teams. That was affected when he left, and it's just kind of been going through the motions ever since, unfortunately. And at the time, it's not something I thought about oh man, we lost Adrian Phillips, but because they did have okay, Nasir Adderley, and we'll figure it out, Rayshawn Jenkins, but it just never got back to that point. And until Nasir develops, until Rayshawn. Well, Rayshawn's gone now with that 4-year contract with the Jaguars. But, until they get more safety help from guys like Adderley and Gilman, I think that's the one spot that I look at and I'm well, this player would really help here. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of guys that are currently in the league. I wish we're still on the team, mostly because it's I really want Sam Tevy back. Not at the moment. But yeah, so I think Adrian Phillips is definitely the consensus Chargers player right now answer. All right, this question, last one from Patreon, comes from Steven, who says, assemble the best possible basketball squad, choosing Chargers players only, can do past or present. So I feel like this question was probably engineered for me, but I'm gonna say
Yeah.
you got to go. Antonio Gates is at the 5. I mean, you hear about him on
Yes.
TV. He's
Yes.
played basketball, Kent State legend. You know what? I'm gonna go with a little bit of a surprise here. Jared Cook was a hooper, and he played basketball.
That makes sense.
So he's got to be on the team. Malcolm Floyd, I just have a feeling he could hoop. And
Okay.
I won't know
Okay.
until he's on the team, but he's 6'5". He's relatively agile. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
I got 3 so far. Tyler, do you have any recommendations on Chargers you think could play basketball?
Yeah, no, I've got a few. If you want to go something like a center, you can go like a Donald Parham, maybe, or Jerry Tillery.
Ooh.
Why not? But apparently Junior Seau was a good high school basketball player, so possibly him. You have Vincent Jackson, who led Northern Colorado in scoring for 2 seasons. But I got a fun one. Austin Eckler. His mom, Suzanne Eckler, apparently, is a quote from Eckler. He says, and I think so, his mom played basketball at Colorado. And so Eckler says, she was a basketball player, a college athlete as well. I remember playing basketball with her, and she never wanted to lose to us, Eckler said with a laugh. One time we were at basketball practice, and I remember her elbowing me in the eye, giving me a black eye. She didn't mean to. She was just going 100%. Like, listen, obviously I can't pick Eckler's mom, but, Eckler apparently was a good basketball player, or at least he played basketball in high school. Most of these guys probably played basketball in high school. But, like his mom was a coach too. So I think he's got something in there. I've never seen him. I don't expect him to be, the center of this basketball team, but I think he can do it. And if anyone can overcome adversity, it's Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I think Eckler could run point, not against like NBA players because he's like 5'8". But if we're talking about this NFL NBA league, I think he could run point. I was actually thinking about Darren Sproles, just because I think that would be
too. Yeah.
I think he's got that. He's got that little guy energy to be a 1 or 2 for sure.
Yeah.
And so he could be on there. Donald Parham is a great answer too. For some reason, I feel like Mike Williams can hoop. I don't know what I'm really basing that on, other than DeAndre Hopkins went to Clemson, and they both are kind of similar as jump ball receivers. So, I'll take Mike Williams on the team too. But that does it for our Patreon questions. So if you have a question you would like to submit, you can do it via Super Chat. Or just put it in the YouTube comment section when we get to it, but please super chat and give us a little bit of money. But anyway, we will be reading out some of these questions. The first one comes from Sherd74, who says, knock on wood, but what would be a realistic win-loss record if Chase Daniel has to start 14 plus games?
What a jerk. Okay, so 14 plus games. Okay. Well, how many games did Herbert win there in those first 3? So let's say they went, well, let's see, so 14 games, so they played 3. So that's Washington, Dallas, and Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say that they're 1 and 2 at that point. So okay, so how many games can Chase Daniel win? In theory, this offense should be not easy, but they could lean on a very efficient running game to make this work. And again, it's all about the pass, but like they could lean on a sort of efficient running game. They do have a good offensive line to keep it going. In theory, this defense is healthy. I don't know. Okay, let me look at the games real fast, because Herbert wins them more games because he can elevate the team past, better. Like, Can Chase Daniel beat the Ravens? I don't think so. But Herbert, I think, can and can elevate them. I think, I don't think Daniel can beat the Steelers. I don't think they're beating the Patriots at all. I'd love for him to beat the Chiefs. Let me check out their schedule this season.
Chase, Kevin said in the chat that, there would be 1 win. They do play the Texans. So that is the free win for Chase Daniel. We just have to see if we can find any others.
Okay, so let's see if we can find the win. So let's say he has to play every game. So Washington football team, no. Dallas, probably not.
No.
Kansas City, no. Raiders, maybe. I think they could split the Raiders with Daniel.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay.
But I think
The
the thing is
Browns,
they
no.
get to really being 1-5. I mean, because they got Cleveland, Baltimore, then they have to.
Yeah.
I mean, they could probably get like maybe a win against Philly and like Cincy. That I think that's possible.
Yeah, Cincy.
Then like Giants, Houston. So like I feel like this ceiling is 5 or 6.
Yeah,
Just in the
I think
games that
so.
they have. And they probably win like 3 or 4. But let's hope that it doesn't have to come to that. But yeah, I
Yes.
did do an article about the quarterback room this week and why Chase Daniel should be the backup. But man, if it's Daniel or Stick for a long period of time, the season's kind of done anyway. Moose
Hmm.
Sarwari asks, do we need another safety?
Okay. Technically, no, if everybody's healthy, but yeah, they need another safety. Like, they're not staying healthy. Come on. So, do they need another starter? Probably not. But like, to me, I'm advocating for them to keep Ben DeLuca from Charlotte, because their defensive back room kind of stinks. Not stinks, but is really, really, really thin behind the starters. So, do they need another safety? Like, yeah, I do. Not necessarily as a starter, but for when the inevitable injury hits, yeah, go find another guy. At this point, I want a guy with like some experience, even if he's like okay or not even all that great. Give me someone who's been in the NFL and played. Like, they're going straight from All Pro Derwin James to Alohi Gilman, who again he's played some snaps, but come on, Alohi Gilman, Mark Webb, Ben DeLuca, maybe. Like, that is such a drop off. So yeah, they need another body, some sort of veteran body at least.
Yeah, I think they need somebody. Maybe that just is playable and for some snaps. Like I would feel better, obviously, not giving Rayshawn the contract that the Jaguars gave him. But if they had a Rayshawn kind of guy, I think I would be okay
Yeah.
with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there's it's tough out there. There's not really a lot left. Hooker is a guy that Darren put in the chat. I think that's kind
Yeah.
of an interesting scenario if they really want to go down that road. I know he's still looking for a starting role, but there's not really a lot of starting roles left open. So if he wanted to sign with the Chargers, I'd be interested to
Yeah.
see what they do in that case because they already have 4 on the roster, and then you're adding 5. I don't know. At that point, does Mark Webb make the roster? That's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do need some safety help, but I don't actually think that they're going to get any, just because if you do take another safety, then what's the point of Webb and Gilman being on the team? And I don't think you're just going to carry 5 safeties.
Sure.
In short, I think they need safety up. Kevin brought up Trey Boston. I think that's an interesting name, but I feel like a lot of the names like Boston, Adai, even Hooker to some extent, I think they're all kind of like, well, if this guy goes down, then we'll bring this guy in. But I don't know if they're really going to be just opening day roster guys for sure. Let's see. Let's see if there's some other questions. All right. I love the football says, why haven't we heard anything about Asante Samuel, or is it just me? I think we've heard a reasonable amount about Asante Samuel. He's still rookie OTAs and he's not starting right now. I mean, just because I think they want to make him earn it. But I think eventually Asante Samuel Jr. will be the outside corner. I just think they spent too high of a draft pick to not really start him. Maybe they have had him practicing at safety and cornerback, and all that. So maybe they kind of move him around, but I think that'll eventually really start at safety. I mean, not safety, sorry, outside corner.
Yeah, that might happen too, though, man. So we'll see.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, I genuinely think that is possible at some point. We had Dontrell Inman starting at safety one game a couple of years ago, so anything is possible. Yeah, I'm not like concerned or anything about not hearing much about him. If I'm being completely honest, like he's not the most like charismatic press conference kind of guy. I don't even know if they've even had him up yet outside of his introductory press conference. So I don't. it's not like he's super featured right now. But I think most of the press conferences where they talk to coaches or the media talks to coaches, it's mostly been about the linebackers, about Herbert, about other things. Whereas I think Samuel Jr.'s what his role is kind of what we all figure. Like he's going to play outside, he's going to play inside. Some safety is interesting, but for the most part, we kind of know that role. Whereas a lot of the coaches, or a lot of the media members, want to know, what is Joey Bosa doing in this defense? What is Jerry Tillery doing in this defense? Asante Samuel Jr., I think his role is so defined that everyone's just kind of like, he's not really like the featured, question, because we kind of know what he's going to do. So no one's really, asking about him or what his role is.
Right. And I don't know. I really think that as much as they talk about Brandon Faison, I don't think that they're going to do that whole thing and do that song and dance with him. I'd be very surprised if they really.
They're doing that with, hey, sorry, I got to ask you real fast, as a legendary Urban Meyer hater, how do you feel about them not committing to Trevor Lawrence just yet?
That's so stupid. I don't know why you would even say that.
So
That's just so ridiculous.
So stupid.
Yeah. I remember I said that Coach of the Year thing on the podcast. I rescind that. I take that back. Anyway, Michael Torta asks, what do you guys know about rollover cap? Do you think there's any chance DJ gets extended before or during the season? I don't know if there's a chance he gets extended this season. I think they ultimately want to see how things play out, but they also don't have to because they picked up his 5th-year option. He's going to be on the team next year either way. Even if he were to get hurt this year, they don't really need a whole lot of cap space to do it. I mean, they have $50 million in cap available next year, pretty much, and whatever they don't use this year rolls over. So I think that's projected into that $50 million total. So Derwin will want to be the highest paid safety. I don't think there's any question about that. Ultimately, beating out Justin Simmons for that title. So I think that really. It's all about whether he stays healthy this year. If he does, and he plays 16 games, I think they extend him next offseason to the record-breaking safety deal pretty easily.
Yeah, no, if he plays relatively healthy and about the same level we expect, I can't imagine he's not breaking that record for the contract. As far as him getting extended this season, unlikely in my opinion. I think he's kind of in that Mike Williams sort of thing where, sure, he could get extended based on his previous play, but you want that paycheck, and Derwin James needs that good season to get that bigger paycheck. Same thing for Mike Williams, right? He doesn't want to get paid now. He wants to go have 1,400 yards and be supposedly the featured guy that the coaches have talked him up to be, and then go get that big paycheck. With the Chargers, without them, who knows? So yeah, I don't think there's any chance Derwin James is extended before this season or during it all.
All right. Troy Middleton asks, what do you think, or who do you think makes the Pro Bowl this year from the team?
Okay. I was actually surprised Justin Herbert didn't make it last year because it's a fan voted thing. And I thought that we were going to push him over the top because if we could do anything, it's vote for Justin Herbert, apparently. Right. I'm surprised he didn't make it. So let me check out the roster. So Herbert, Eckler, it's just sorry. Are they doing AFC, NFC, or are they just doing the pool? I don't remember.
I think they went back to AFC, NFC, unless I'm wrong. Someone can say that in the comments, but I think they went back to the normal format. I think it's like I have no idea what the formulas are anymore. I know the NBA is still like, oh, it's 10% the fan vote and 90% this. Like, just put whoever the best players are in the game, please. I'm sick of this. Yeah. I think the ones that pop out on paper, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen is always a possibility. Maybe Austin Eckler if he has a good enough year. Herbert, it's hard with Herbert unless there's alternates because you can only pick 3 quarterbacks. So if you were in a conference with Mahomes, Lamar, and Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson's still there. That's who got the nod last year over Herbert. So I just think it's really hard for Justin to make it. So I think approximately you're looking at 3 or 4 potential. Who was a alternate? I remember Bosa made it, and was that it? Or no, there was another one, and then there was another guy that was an alternate. I don't know.
Was Keenan Allen not an alternate? That's the only thing I could think of. I can't imagine who else would have deserved it.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. Someone could put that in the
Hunter
comments.
Henry?
Maybe no, I don't think so. Somebody was an alternate that didn't make it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I think you're really looking at 3 or 4 guys max. Herbert, if he really goes off, but I just think it's so hard to make it with the quarterbacks because there's fewer spots. Katia says Alex is Asian, right? I'm not Asian. I just really have small eyes. That's the only thing that I have that makes me Asian. I'm a weird European whatever mix.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Have you ever heard Alex say Philly? No, he always says Philly. He's not Asian.
Darren says, who is going to back up Bosa when he misses games? And follow up, seriously, who are we thinking of? Tillery?
A little concerned there. I'm trying to find where this question was, but okay. Who's going to back up Joey Bosa?
I mean, probably Fackrell. I mean, that's probably the most notable answer. And then if Fackrell goes down, you have to sign somebody else anyway, or at least bring somebody up from the practice squad. Joe Gaziano, I don't know at that point. Who's going to back up Bosa if he misses games? I don't want to think about it. That's darkest timeline.
Okay, so I'll throw out a different answer then, and I think you want to put your best players on the field. And while he's currently not slotted to play this, it's different because he's not a pass rusher in the same way that like Joey Bosa or Chandler. Most are pass rushers. But if I'm trying to put the best guys on the field, instead of having Rumph there, no offense to Rumph, but if Bosa goes in week 3,
you always have offense to Rumph. You're a Rumph hater.
Apparently, well, they only have 2 other edge guys. So it's Rumph or Fackrell. You said Fackrell, I went with Rumph. And listen, I might put Kenneth Murray out there at outside linebacker. I don't know if that's best suited for him, but as a guy who could get after the passer, not really as an edge rusher though. It's more just like a talent and an ability sort of thing than like actual pass rush moves. But I'd give him a shot. I think he's been working on shedding blocks and diagnosing plays a lot this offseason, says him. And so while it's not the best position, I might rather have him on the field and have some combination of either Trinkle and White or just Trinkle on the field at inside linebacker. So not the best option, but I don't really know that because Tillery, Tillery could play Bosa's like hands in the dirt sort of snaps, but asking Tillery to be a stand-up outside linebacker, then go cover Austin Eckler in the flat sounds horrendous. Like we watched him on that fumble recovery return that he kind of got taken away from him or whatever, and he was like running off slower than Phillip Rivers 40 down that sideline. So the idea of Tillery playing like a Joey Bosa outside linebacker role is a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, it might have to be Tillery. I guess if enough guys go down, but yeah, there's no real good answer to that, to be honest. I mean, that's just how good Joey Bosa is and how bad the other run defenders are. So I really don't know what they would do. Re-sign Melvin Ingram, bring him back.
Actually, probably. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, that might be a legitimate possibility if that happens. Jose says, thoughts on Steven Nelson? Would he be a good signing? I don't know. I mean, I think they could bring him in if there are cornerback injuries past this point, but I think they're pretty set in terms of their starting cornerbacks being Michael Davis, Asante Samuel, and Chris Harrison. They seem to like their backup options in terms of Faison and Campbell and the guys that they have there. So, I wouldn't say never, but I think Steven Nelson's probably looking for a little bit of a bigger role than would be available to him on the Chargers.
Yeah. At this point, I watched one game of his and I didn't see any reason why he shouldn't be signed by a team right now. I don't recall much from that game though, but he looked good and I'd love to have another, defender out there, but I think I don't know. I don't like it, but like you said, he's probably looking for more of a role than what he's going to get with the Chargers right now.
Yeah. Michael asks, who's running back 2 through 4 on the depth chart? So I think Austin Eckler is obviously running back.
I wonder who your
one.
4 is.
Yeah, I think Justin Jackson is running back number 2, just strictly from a talent standpoint. I know we talked about his health ad nauseum, but to me, yeah, he still is the second most talented running back. Then 3, I mean, this is really between Kelly and Roundtree. I think that they're probably going to have Roundtree playing more special teams unless Kelly or somebody gets hurt in front of him. So I think they'll carry 4 running backs, but that Roundtree is probably only going to be used in like those goal line situations or like short yardage. But I don't think they'll play him and running backs 1 through 3 unless there's injuries and stuff and he has to. But yeah, so I guess 1 through 4. I think it's a pretty easy, just Eckler, Jackson, Kelly, and then probably Roundtree. But yeah, I don't know if Roundtree really counts as a running back this year because I do think he'll ultimately be playing a lot more special teams.
You hate him that much, you can't count him as a running back.
I don't.
No, I totally understand. I don't know. Like, how much did special teams take away from the other running backs who were after, let's say, Eckler and Jackson? Like, I don't recall how much you being on special teams will take away from your role as a running back. Like,
well,
I legitimately think Roundtree's going to be RB3.
I don't think it's really going to take away from his role, but you have to have somebody that is going to be that guy. I mean, are you going to play Joshua Kelly on special teams? Like we saw how that experiment went last year, and I know a lot of people are mad at George Stewart, and maybe Joshua Kelly could fix his special teams play, but I think he could still have a role. If he beats out Joshua Kelly, he beats out Joshua Kelly. But I just think it makes the most sense because Joshua Kelly is the same kind of running back he is in terms of type. So, if you kind of have like those 3 different types of running backs and then, you bring in Roundtree for kind of those goal line carries, but I don't see him ascending up the depth chart yet, but we'll see. All right. Let's get some more questions in there. Hey, you have the super chat option. I'm imploring you to use the super chat option. Please help us. We need to feed our families. Anyway.
None of us have kids, so whatever.
None of us have kids, but we need to feed our families. Kadia says, is Tyron Johnson going to become the wide receiver 3 this year? He looks better than Guyton to me. What do you guys think? I think Tyron is the wide receiver 3 as of now. I think the wild card is less Guyton, actually, and more how they view Josh Palmer, because I think if Josh Palmer is really ascending, then he could be wide receiver 3. But Tyron Johnson's the most skilled out of all of them. He's equally as athletic as Guyton is, and I would argue that his athleticism has more use for it because he's not just kind of a straight line runner, right, when we talk about those routes. So to me, Johnson is the wide receiver 3 for the time being, and then you probably have Guyton wide receiver 4, Palmer wide receiver 5, and figure it out from there. But I think Tyron Johnson goes in as wide receiver 3, and Shelley Smith of ESPN and the coaching staff seems to really like him a lot.
Will he be wide receiver 3? Okay. Old coaching staff, I don't think he's wide receiver 3. New coaching staff, I think he is. There's nothing really multiple about Jalen Guyton except for the multiple drops that he has. There's no extra thing to his game. It's kind of as advertised. I think Mina Kimes was just tweeting about him and like, hey, this Jalen Guyton guy got open all the time. And that's true. Like, he did get open deep quite a few times. He had, quite a few catches and a good amount of yards for a guy who basically just joined the team. Right. But there's not a lot you can do with him. Does he have a role? Totally. Guyton is absolutely going to have a role. But like, if it were up to me, it would be Tyron Johnson kind of by a lot, at least between those two. Then you get to Palmer. Palmer is like, if he contributes and has 300, 400 yards this year, I'm stoked because that means he was probably getting on the field. He earned it, and hopefully it doesn't mean anyone else was hurt. Palmer's more of like a year 2 kind of guy for me, where when Williams eventually goes and you kind of need to round out your receiving core, I think Palmer takes it. But for now, I would go Tyron Johnson. He is, again, a former 5-star recruit, the number 5 wide receiver recruit in the nation out of high school. So the talent is absolutely there, and I don't see why he couldn't take the wide receiver 3 role unless they have something against him, but they don't. So I think he'll take it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with people that like Jalen Guyton. I mean, Jalen Guyton is great. For
Sure.
what he is. I just think when you're
Yes.
comparing Guyton and Johnson, right? Like Guyton is kind of, I said this on the last podcast. The people maybe got mad at me. I don't know, but he's ceiling is kind of Travis Benjamin. Like, and I don't mean that as an
Mhm.
insult, but what Cleveland Benjamin was. Is sort of what I
Sure.
imagine Guyton being, in the sense that, like, yeah, he opens up the field for you, but he's not really as shifty or as creative of a player. But if Jalen Guyton were to become that kind of a player, not so much Chargers Benjamin, but rather Browns Benjamin, like that would be considered, I think, for me, a breakout season for him. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think Johnson is the more interesting receiver.
Mhm.
Darren also asks, who's the kicker this year? More kicker talk.
Well, our bet's off. Yeah, more kicker talk. We have never had more work getting out work for kickers than I can remember for it with Bolt Beat or on the podcast or ever. So apparently we're going through kickers again. I think we all decided it was Vizcaino last time we talked about this. No,
No, I said Kessman.
oh no, you
But
said Kessman. You said
yeah.
Kessman. Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
it's really yeah,
yeah,
it's a flip a
it's
coin.
a toss up. To me, if you're gonna say like Kessman, for me, it's just that he has the biggest leg out of them, and I mean, he's kicked in NFL
Yeah,
stadiums, all that, and he's kind of young. You can kind of mold him a little bit, but that's really my take on him. But like, if Kessman goes 2 for 9 in the preseason, suddenly we're not talking about him anymore, right? So it's just such a results based position that I think it's kind of hard to
hmm
predict. My only prediction is because of what Darius Swinton said in not having, two guys to do kickoffs and kicking. I think that's the
yep,
only thing that we really know right now that's concrete about it. So that doesn't necessarily mean Michael Badgley can't make it. Maybe he does improve his kickoffs, but I don't think that he's going to make the team. I do think it ultimately will be Vizcaino and yeah, Vizcaino or Kessman, I think. And then you look at the other kind of special teams positions. I think it'll be Ty Long, and then maybe they really radically
hmm
change it and go with Kolmaza, and then or Ryan Langan, who's the Georgia State long snapper with the hype tape. But we'll see what happens there. But I think they could kind of radically change the special teams unit if they really wanted to. Other than Tai Long, I do think Tai Long will stay on. Has proven himself good enough to really stay on, and I'm not really sure what his competition is. Is it the guy Lachlan Edwards is there?
yeah. Not Shane Lachlan. It's the reverse. It's Lachlan to
Yeah,
Edwards. I think, like you said.
yeah.
I'm really curious how the preseason games are going to go because does Badgley get the first trot out when he gets to go do preseason games? I don't remember them ever having 3 kickers at once. I always felt like it was a Young Hui Koo, Josh Lambo first half, second half sort of thing. Never like a 3 kicker battle, and certainly not someone like Badgley who technically is an established kicker. It's not like they're all the same kind of level tryouts. So, like, does Badgley get first crack? And when that happens, does every fan overreact and start yelling at the coaching staff because they're stupid, or what? I'm really curious how they're going to divvy up, or do they cut a guy? Like, do most teams have 3 going into the preseason, or are they going to cut a guy? When are cuts? Sorry, there's a lot of questions.
Well, so they have 86 on the roster right now, and I think
hmm
maybe after the first preseason game, they have to be at 85. So they don't actually have to make many cuts before the first preseason game. And then, then there's the cut to 80. Then there's the cut to 53. So I think at least for the first
Okay.
preseason game, unless they decide to cut one of the kickers before that to get to 85, or they sign other players, they should be able to have all 3 and then see what happens. But yeah, I think it'll basically be that 86 to 85, then cut down to 80, and then the final cut down to 53. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can think of that kind of reminds me of what this was when they had Roberto Aguayo, Caleb Sturgis in that year, which was when Badgley got discovered because they realized Caleb Sturgis sucked. But yeah, so that's also the thing about preseason kicking competitions is you could come out of it thinking you got the right guy, and then oops, turns out we didn't get the right guy at all. So kicking is just is a really fickle thing in general. All right. SD Fishin asked Kaiser played better than Murray last season, and Murray isn't good versus pass or run. Should Kaiser get more playing time than Murray? I'll allow Tyler to tackle that first.
Okay. I'm trying to find that question so I can have it all in front of me. Okay, so Kaiser played better than Murray last season. Murray's good for passes the run. Well, first of all, Murray's not going to be asked to be that. He's going to have to do it, work in pass coverage. And Chris Harris even said that they're going to have to play more in pass coverage. The difference is it'll be something he's more comfortable doing rather than, like when was he 20 yards downfield knocking down a pass against Tyreek Hill? Like that's unlikely to happen, very frequently with this defense and the way Staley's going to play them. He's not good against the run. His thing for me with Murray, it's he needs to make those at line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage kind of plays rather than get the tackle after 3 yards, after 5 yards, or whatever. Make those tackles for loss, make those run stops, and I think he's definitely going to get there. He was literally thrown into a defense he wasn't comfortable with as a rookie, apparently dealing with some sort of injury that I don't know if it bugged him all that much, but he had it the whole season. So another year under his belt with the right, and he was calling plays, so there was so much thrown at him, and for him to come out with 100 tackles and miss like the third lowest rate for a linebacker since the Telesco era, I think he'll do great things. As far as like Kaiser playing better than Murray, I think there were flashes, but to me, like you'd probably have to ask Stevens. I know Steven did a breakdown on Kaiser White, at least early in the season. I couldn't tell you which one was better, but at the very least, Kaiser shouldn't be playing more playing time than Murray because, you're gonna throw all your chips on the table for Kaiser White, and then he gets hurt after week 3. I'd rather have Murray out there. I'd rather have Murray, a guy who is somewhat like dependably healthy, I think, and was a first round pick just recently. I think he should be the guy out there over Kaiser. Although Kaiser does, have a lot of different roles that he can play. Like you shouldn't not put Kaiser White on the field just because Murray's there, but find ways to get Kaiser involved. As a blitzer, I think he's actually pretty underrated. He's a little bit better in coverage than Murray, probably. I couldn't give him more playing time than Murray.
Yeah, I think that if you're talking about the pass, maybe Kaiser White's a little bit better, but like that's kind of not what Kenneth Murray's job is. Anyway, yeah, like he'll have to play some, passing snaps for sure, but like there's ways to get around him in pass coverage, and he wasn't terrible at pass coverage. We're not, it's not like Patrick Queen or stuff like that. Where
it's so weird to say numbers, that.
Yeah, those numbers aren't great, but to me, you can use Kenneth Murray in ways that aren't just, covering the pass. Like you can use him as a QB spy. You can, come occasionally, maybe off the edge, like he did a little bit in the Patriots game as a pass rusher. So to me, I think Kenneth Murray is over Kaiser White at this point. But maybe the coaching staff can convert Kaiser White a little bit and do some kind of linebacker safety stuff with him, like they did in college at West Virginia. That would kind of be interesting. Kadia also asked, "Is this Easton's last season?"
He's not. Okay, is he under contract still?
So I think he's under contract for one more year because this would be 19, 20, 21, 22. So a year after this would be his last year's contract.
Like I personally think we agreed on this too, that they're just going to cut him. Like I'm not that he can't stick around in the practice squad, but
yeah,
like I think they could just cut him this offseason because they have to make room for other positions that are super, super thin and weak. So if he sticks around this year, and especially if he makes the roster, like I don't think it's his last season because now you technically will have seen him in the preseason, and in theory, he's now a veteran backup quarterback, sort of. So like, there's like, gosh, this is so tough to call. Is this his last season?
I know Steven disagreed with us and said that he thinks he'll make the roster. My thing is just if you're gonna keep probably 6 cornerbacks, probably 4 running backs because of Roundtree. And then you're talking about, all the other positions where they really need depth. I just don't know how you really justify an Easton stick spot at that point especially because Justin Herbert's your quarterback going forward. There's no debate about that anymore.
True.
And you have Chase Daniel, who's a capable backup. And I mean, like, yeah, you can mold Easton Stick into the backup of the future, but like, how valuable is that, right? Like, I'd rather, I guess, just keep him on the practice squad if that's what you want to do. And I because he hasn't played, I don't think there will be a ton of value about him. If he beats out Chase Daniel, he beats out Chase Daniel. Brandon Staley seemed to infer that they would pick one of those guys as QB2. I just think Chase Daniel's NFL experience really, to me, just overvalues whatever Easton does in the preseason. Like, he has 69 career games, 5 starts. Like, that's just the experience that Easton can't match. Omar, to piggyback of Katya's question, what is the obsession with Easton Stick by some fans? I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of a Twitter meme at this point, but I really don't know what the obsession is, because a couple months ago, people were talking about using Easton Stick as Taysom Hill. I think it's just because he was drafted in 2019 when they were, looking kind of to replace Rivers, and people thought like, oh, maybe this could be the guy. And, he's a nice looking guy. By all accounts, he played at North Dakota State, which is where Wentz and Trey Lance played. Right. So like you do kind of have that reputation there. So I think there's some of that stuff with Easton Stick. I don't know what the obsession is. But yeah. To me, just not every quarterback that's going to come out of that pipeline is going to be the same. And, I kind of said this a couple podcasts ago, but like, when we did that roster prediction episode, I don't think it's a really bad thing to cut Easton Stick just because the direction of the franchise changed, right? They didn't expect to be 5-11 in 2019 and have this Justin Herbert selection for sure. So to me, I just think that changed the plan with Easton Stick, or, kind of the long-term development of him. I think he could be used in, some interesting ways if you really want to like try to draw up something for him. But for me, the whole thing is, why do you want to take Justin Herbert off the field? And to me, like, at the end of the day, there's no real good answer to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the obsession goes, I promise you that the fans are obsessed the moment they got him. I have never received more like angry DMs on the Bolt Beat account than when I said that Easton Stick, even the instant replay being there, me saying that, Easton Stick threw the ball behind the guy, and that's why he's running this way, right? And the receiver has to go like this to catch the ball. And I said, oh, that's on Easton Stick. He threw it behind him. And even the Lightning podcast was like, yeah, Easton Stick clearly threw it behind him. And I got so much hate mail for that.
Was that the Saints game one?
No, it was not the Saints game. It was like he was trying to lead like a fourth quarter game winning drive or game tying drive or something in the preseason.
It was one of those.
Maybe.
I think it might have been.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and he just threw it behind him, and people were just so mad at me for saying that how dare I criticize Easton Stick, despite the fact that I wrote a very nice piece about him, saying all these nice things. I mean, people were so critical from day one. I don't know what it is. I think people in general just hang on to his win-loss record and the fact that, yeah, he won a ton of games at North Dakota State. If I'm not mistaken, was he undefeated, or like he had like one loss or something?
Well, yeah, something like that. But it's also like, that's North Dakota State. Like, that's how dominant they've been every year. Like, that's just how good that, program is. I mean, I think that whole record thing where they went undefeated started with Carson Wentz, and they didn't lose a game for like 4 years or something. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to diss Easton Stick. He seems like a nice guy. I just don't know what his real role on this team is if we're not developing him for the future. Now, if he plays in the preseason and they still think, hey, maybe next year we can flip him for a 6th-round pick or something, that's fine. But yeah, I've never understood the Easton Stick thing either. Let's do maybe 2 more questions and then we'll get out of here. Darren says, what UDFA makes the team? My money is on Ogbongbemiga. He said Ogbongbemiga. Always partial to the Nigerian New Wave NFL pipeline. I think Ogbongbemiga is a good one. The coaches seem to like him, and they're a little bit thin at linebacker. So I think that's a good one. Kessman is kind of my pick to make the team as well, just because he's a kicker, and they probably need to replace Badgley. So I think those are certainly the top two. Tyler's partial, I know, to Ben DeLuca. So, hope he makes the team. But yeah, so I think those are kind of the guys that probably have the best chance.
Yeah, if I wasn't picking Vizcaino, then yeah, my money would be on Kessman, because even though Ogbongbemiga probably in most Gus Bradley seasons could make the roster, I don't think that linebackers are just not super prioritized, and certainly not linebackers that can't cover. Like, he's an undrafted free agent for a reason, and I do think he's okay as a not starting Mike, but in college as a Mike who can come downhill and make plays or potentially blitz. But otherwise, like in coverage, he's kind of slow. It's just kind of awkward to watch him sometimes. And I don't think, like, Nick Niemann, on the other hand, is very good in coverage and also very athletic. And so I think he's kind of a guy. If Niemann were an undrafted free agent, I would certainly pick him to make it over Ogbongbemiga. But Niemann was drafted, so never mind. So Kessman probably has the money. Ogbongbemiga probably next, just because he was referenced, and because if Swinton's saying he's good on special teams, and that's partially good enough to make the roster. But again, he's not all that different from, he is, but like Ben DeLuca, where at least, DBs and versatile DBs are more prioritized in this defense because he can play free, strong, slot. He's, very, very, both Ogbongbemiga and DeLuca have low missed tackle rates. I think that's very important for them to make special teams. DeLuca was a team captain for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's the school's leader in tackle. It's Charlotte, so whatever. But the school's leader in tackles and some other stats. And so, I think because DB and a versatile DB with generally the same profile as Ogbongbemiga, both are about the same kind of level UDFAs, in my opinion. I think he has a shot. But yeah, I'll go with Kessman, I guess, if I had to pick one. But even then, I think it's Vizcaino. So I don't know. I'm pulling for DeLuca. I'll ride that train until I'm completely wrong.
Oh man, at least it won't hurt as much as Bobby Holly last year. I know that was painful for
that
you.
One hurts so bad. This is just pen in my eye. That was so frustrating. Daniel Popper's he's playing first team reps. Yeah. And he stonewalled Denzel Perryman and Desmond King on blitzes. Yeah. Gabe Nagers makes the team. What? Yeah. Gabe Nagers making the team was just, I was surprised.
Well, now he's Justin Herbert's roommate, so it'll probably never get cut either. All right. I think that will do it for us today. Thank you guys for joining the live stream. Thanks for putting up with me and Tyler for a whole hour. We'll try to rush Steven back next week, but the kids got to play in the classroom today. So Tyler, where can people find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at Tyler J. Shun, and Katia Vanessa Pinto just described me perfectly. He has a funny face, is not bad looking, but something weird about his facial expressions. He seems nice, though. That's basically me. If I had a Tinder profile, that's what I'd put.
Yeah, I'm the second Asian on the show, apparently. So I got a bit of a funny face too, per the other comments earlier. So yeah, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.